In today's video, we are going to make a song like Gracie Abrams, and it's gonna sound like this.
I'll keep you close, my dear, until I disappear. Why don't you go?
Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. In today's video, we are going to cover a very special artist. Her name is Gracie Abrams, and I'm going to show you how to make a song like I Love You, I'm Sorry. Gracie Abrams shot to success since her debut album dropped, and her 2024 album, The Secret of Us, brought her into mainstream. She's an amazing songwriter, and her along with her producer Aaron Dessner have made some great tracks for this album. So in this video, I'm going to take you along the journey of creating a song like I Love You, I'm Sorry. But before jumping into that, I just want to tell you that I am a music producer and I do this full time. So if you vibe with any of the music that is up on my channel and you yourself are looking for a music producer to help you with your music, I would love to jump on board and help you out. To get in touch with me, you'll find a quick form in the description below that you can fill, and I would love to get in touch with you. With everything out of the way, let's get straight into it. So as you can see, we are at 135 BPM and the time signature is going to be 3/4 since the song I Love You, I'm Sorry is in this time signature. Just like a reference, I want to start off with a guitar riff that's playing some chords, and I'm just going to lay it down. So this is what I came up with. So the chord progression is going to be C sharp major, G sharp major and F sharp major, and the notes are going to alternate between the suspended and the major chords. And our intro is going to play for about 8 bars. One thing to remember here is that we are on 3/4 time signature, so the amount of bars is going to be longer compared to if we were in 4/4. After starting with this simple guitar riff, we move on to the verse. I have put on markers here, as you can see, and the verse is also going to play the same chords. Now since we are not changing anything coming from the intro to the verse, we need to add something to keep the production going. So we are going to layer this guitar with some more guitars, and this is what I came up with. It follows the same chord progression but in a finger picking style pattern, and I've panned it hard left and right to give us that stereo spread. Now coming to the processing on these channels, for the main guitar I am doing some EQ. Now on this guitar I had very old strings, so I needed to add some brightness, and in the processing along the way you'll see how I achieved it. I'm following this EQ up with a compressor. So now we are hovering around -5 to -7 dB of gain reduction. I am following this compressor up with one more So I played this part with a plectrum, and this is the screeching sound that comes from the plectrum, and I reduced it with a dynamic EQ. I'm using this plugin called CLA Guitars by Waves. As you can see, I'm not adding much, I'm actually taking some things out, but still it's adding some liveliness to the guitar and I love it. And I'm ending the chain with multiband compressor. So I noticed that the plectrum hitting on the strings was making a lot of noise and I wanted to get rid of it. So I'm using a multiband compressor starting at around 1647 Hz to about 22k. I am sending it to a instrumental verb bus that I've created using Valhalla Vintage Verb. I am on the 1980s color, I have not changed anything, and I'm EQing this bus to get rid of our low mids and lows. Now moving on to a picking pattern layers processing, I start off with an EQ. So I didn't want a lot of body in this guitar, I just wanted the lows and the highs coming from the upper and the lowest strings. I added a UAD LA2A to even out the dynamics. You can see it's not doing too much, it's hovering between -3 to -5 dB of gain reduction. Just a touch. I am EQing this up a bit. Without it, I just wanted to get rid of that frequency. Next comes in our multiband compressor. The same thing, taking out the plectrum noise, and EQ, Fab Filters Saturn. So I've divided this into two bands crossing over at 157 Hz. The first band has 46% drive while the second has 26% drive, and I'm following this up with some fresh air, just a touch of it. And along with our main guitar. So now our guitars are covering the whole stereo spectrum and it forms like a blanket. The same thing repeats and goes on for some time, and after this point I wanted to add some keys, especially some piano. So this is what I added in the second half of the verse to keep the production progressing. The same chord progression, it's a beautiful sound. I love when just the piano and the guitars complement each other very nicely. For this sound I'm using Keyscape and I am on the LA Custom C7 Rich Ballad preset. It sounds like this on its own. A very balanced tone, it sounds very lush, and I love how this tone was created, emphasizing on the lows and the low mids. Now the next thing I wanted to add in this verse was a bass guitar, and I tried out a bunch of guitars, but I actually ended up playing an upright bass because I felt like doing something different, and songs like this are a great way to use the upright bass. So let's take a look at it. A nice playful bass line, and the sound came from Xenology by Roland. I'm using the uptight bass preset and I'm EQing this just a bit to get rid of the highs. This along with the rest of the instrumental sounds like this. We have a nice pace going to our song now. And the next thing I wanted to add here was some ambient synths which play some extended notes, and I came up with this. As you can see, this is a very simple lead. I'm using Omnisphere for this and I'm on the Crystal Swell Sheen preset. Adding a ton of reverb, sending it to our bus on the Valhalla Vintage Verb. Now when I listen to our reference I Love You I'm Sorry closely, I realized that they also have some swell guitars and stuff like that going. So I wanted to add that in, and here's what I came up with. I've panned it to the right, and for the sound I'm using Amplitube. I use the 57 custom twin amp, and for the pedals I'm using a compressor right before the amp. Going into these two pedals, I'm using a swell unit at about 546 milliseconds of time, and depth is at -90 dB, sensitivity is at max. This is followed by a shimmer verb. Did not change anything. I am at 34% of mix. I added a chorus plug into this. Default rate setting at -17% mix, and a compressor. This is Logic stock compressor. I'm using the opto setting, and I just wanted to even out the dynamics to bring up the tail a bit so that it's a uniform sound and it doesn't get lost in the mix. As you can see, I am on very long release, 880 milliseconds of release. Without it, you can see our tail just dies down as we come to the end of the note, and with it, it just brings it up. And finally, I am adding an EQ to get rid of this resonance frequency. Amazing. Now with our verse down, it's time to move on to the chorus. I've already laid it down. And for the chorus, I wanted to change the chord progression a bit. So instead of going C sharp, G sharp and F sharp, I added a B flat minor in the middle. So now I'll be going C sharp, G sharp, B flat minor and then an F sharp. Just a small addition, did not change much, and this is the part where I wanted the drums to come into the song, so I played this pattern. For this first chorus, I just wanted the kick and the snare. For the kick, I'm using this sound and the snare, and on the bass, I am taking down the highs quite a bit to get me that filtered kind of a drum sound. So with our instrument, our snare, which is the rim shot, has quite a bit of reverb. I sent it to the instrumental verb, and I also added a vintage verb at 21.6% mix, and I'm saturating it quite a lot. You can see the highs are saturated at around 83.96%, and then I'm cutting down the lows and the highs. And towards the end of our verse, just to give us a little bit of build up, I added some tom samples without the bus EQ. Let's listen to it. As you can see, I'm adding little radiator to it, so it's giving me quite a lot of distortion. So our drums sound like this. With all the instruments, I've kept the ambient synth playing as a drone in the chorus. And for the piano, I wanted to change the playing style a bit. Instead of playing just simple plain chords, I added a few notes here and there. With the guitar, and finally, I felt like there was just one single thing missing, which was our guitar. This is again a swell guitar as a continuation from our verse. So our verse swell and our chorus swell sounds like this. On the tone side, I'm using Amplitube, again on the 57 custom twin amp. I am following this up with a Valhalla vintage verb just to drown it out into reverb. A ton of it at 61.2% mix, and some cleanup using this EQ. Using mid side, I'm taking down the mids from the mid stereo channel just to get rid of anything that might clash with the vocals. Now this chorus goes on for about 16 bars. It sounds like a huge number, 16 bars is a lot, but again we are on the 3-4 time signature and the numbers may vary. And on the downbeat, I forgot to tell you this, I am adding this cymbal. It is a ride hit played softly, so it's not a lot of shimmer but just something to give us that transition, that sense of transition. And this is all for our chorus. One last thing, as a transition element, I added this reverse cymbal. So what I did was I bounced this in place, reversed it, and added an EQ and took down everything apart from the highs. A very shimmery kind of a sound. And on the automation, I am taking it from the left again to the center. Just wanted to add a little movement to an otherwise simple sample. And now we move on to our second verse. So for our second verse, we immediately come in with a few cymbals as a continuation from our previous cymbal in the chorus. This one is the first one. I'm again playing with panning to give me a little movement, and followed by this sample. Both of them together sound like this. We follow the same drum pattern, and there's just one thing that I added was this hi-hat. It's off of Logic's loop library. And I'm adding a long reverb kind of a tambourine. On its own, it sounds like this. Panned it to the right, added Valhalla room reverb and a touch of our instrumental verb. A nice long tail to it. We come back to our usual bass pattern in the verse. Same as the first verse, and I'm adding a new layer of electric guitar, which is this. Panned it to the left, and I'm again using Amplitude 5 on the same preset, 57 custom twin amp, and I'm adding an EQ to boost the highs and take down some mids, and I'm adding shimmer reverb to it, followed by a chorus at the same 17% mix. So our verse sounds like this now. This whole section repeats once more. Now I also added a couple of ear candy stuff, which is this pluck sound. This comes in towards the end of our first chorus. It's super low in the mix, but just adds a little bit of flavor. And in the second verse, I added this pattern. This follows the same rising kind of a feeling as the guitar. One more thing that I forgot to show you is this additional kick that I added. On its own, it sounds like this. I don't know what I did. This was just a wild experiment. I wanted to do something different. Added an EQ, a very aggressive EQ, some phase distortion at 40% mix, a delay plugin. I'm on the 1/8 note delay and at about 37% of mix, a compressor just to push up the tail of the delay a bit, and finally an EQ to get rid of the highs, and I'm sending it to our instrumental verb, which is the Valhalla vintage verb. So this along with our rhythm section sounds like this. Just a special element to add to the drum groove. And lastly, one of the most important things in the song, same as I Love You I'm Sorry, I added a string section. It sounds like this. I am using Xenology for this on the Film Octaves preset. Added a lot of fresh air at 26% of the high air. I am sending it to our instrumental bus. I am sending it to a room reverb bus quite a lot, minus 3.6 dB. This along with the rest of the instruments sounds amazing. I'm again automating this in volume. I use the touch mode. Let's get it back to read. You can copy this trick for your own productions. Since the string sounds that come in with our libraries do not perfectly emulate a player's playing, and it's because it misses out on the dynamics that a player would play with his bow. You can actually automate the volume of this. Some libraries, especially from Contact, give you the option of automating the dynamics using your modulation wheel, but since I'm using a synth plugin, the Xenology, it does not have that option, and I just simply automated the volume to create that feeling. So with our verse finished, let's move on to our final chorus. I've not added anything apart from the strings that continue into the chorus. Let's take a listen. Again, you'll hear the guitar swells fit perfectly into the mix, and I've brought them up quite a bit compared to our first chorus. And the next thing that I added was this top loop. And finally some toms which go like this. Let's listen to the whole drum section once. Since the song is very simple, we did not feel the need to add a lot of elements. We just got by and made it sound interesting by adding just 2 or 3 interesting elements. This is everything I added to the instrumental, and it's a very simple instrumental. Again, not a lot of changes happening. The only part where we built the whole production quite a bit was the first chorus, going from the first verse, as the verse did not have any drums and it was just the piano, the bass and the guitars. Now let's move on to the vocals and see how it was done. So this is our vocal stack. I noticed that in I Love You, I'm Sorry, the artist starts off with a simple single vocal and moves on to the chorus with a double layer, and that is exactly what I did here. We start off with a single layer in the verse.
I feel my soul wanting to leave, just as you're walking down the hallway.
You can hear a lot of construction noise in my vocal takes that was going on in the background. So let's take a look at the processing on this. I start off with a pitch corrector, waves tuned real time. I am on 33 milliseconds of speed and 36.9 milliseconds of note transition. We are on the C sharp major scale. Next I added a compressor. This is Logic stock compressor, the Studio VCA setting. I am on minus 36 dB of threshold. You can adjust it according to your vocal level. On fast attack and fast release, the attack is at about 15 milliseconds, release is at about 51 milliseconds. I added a CLA 3A on top of this, followed by an EQ. Now I am doing serial compression and serial EQ here. This EQ is doing quite a lot of heavy lifting for us, and followed by one more EQ. Now since this EQ had the highs boosted, I added a de-esser. It's catching quite a lot of the sibilance, and I'm adding 11% higher from fresh air. And this is it for the verse. In the chorus I added one more layer to our lead vocal, which is the DT. Both of them together sound like this.
I'll keep you close, my dear, until I disappear.
I copied this whole channel strip and pasted it here, panned it slightly to the right, and I'm grouping these two tracks together into our lead vocal bus, to which I am adding some multiband, doing quite a lot of work.
I'll keep you close, my dear.
Without it,
I'll keep you close.
it sounded like a very aggressive vocal take because of all the compressors that we added, and using this plugin I wanted to tame down the dynamics. And with a multiband compressor like this, you can actually divide the whole spectrum into bands. You can apply compression to different bands on different settings. And I ended the chain with an EQ. This is all for our lead vocal. Now in the second verse comes in our first harmony. It sounds like this.
How have you been? It's hard to believe We used to be so perfect.
I didn't need to do any processing on this. I just added LA2A to even out the dynamics.
How have you been? It's hard to believe.
You can see how it's only catching the peaks and it's evening out the highest part to match the lowest vocal part. Now this is something that I learned along the way. In the beginning, I felt like you absolutely need to add plugins to all your channels, and as I progressed into my career, I understood that only use your plugins when it's necessary. A prime example of it is in this case. I just added a compressor to even out my dynamics, and that's all. I did not add any EQ, neither am I sending it to any bus, because if you listen to it with a lead vocal, it fits perfectly.
How have you been? It's hard to believe. We used to be so perfect.
Now this will again vary from song to song. Since this song demanded only the lead vocals to be present in the center and the harmonies to be pushed way back into the mix, I did not add any EQ. It just fit perfectly right there. This whole section goes on till the end of our verse, and we move on to our final chorus, to which I added this falsetto harmony.
I'll keep you close, my dear, until I disappear.
I am adding waves tune real time for tuning to both these tracks, and on the bus I'm using an LA2A, just makes it sound full, and I'm following it up with a Q3. And the second harmony that I added was this low part.
I'll keep you close, my dear.
Added just an EQ. Now our whole vocal stack together sounds like this.
I'll keep you close, my dear, until I disappear.
All these elements are very simple, but they fit perfectly into each other. And this is the complete breakdown of the song. It's that simple. I just needed to be mindful of every single element that I'm adding, and the song got done in around 52 tracks. Now I don't believe in the number of tracks that I'm adding, but just to give you an example of how simple a production can be, with just 51 or 52 tracks we completed the whole song, and it includes the vocals as well. So let's take a final listen to the song.
I feel my soul wanting to leave, just as you're walking down the hallway. Time is frozen, it feels like a dream. We're two worlds apart, it isn't the same. Oh, how we made it so beautiful. But all good things come to an end. I'll keep you close, my dear, until I disappear. Why don't you go ahead, but just let it be known. Oh, I loved you first. How have you been? It's hard to believe we used to be so perfect. Now we just walk our different paths. Heard you moved on. What is it like? I hope he's everything I wasn't. While I lie awake, stuck in the dream.
That is all for today's breakdown. I hope you had as much fun as I had while making the whole song. It was quite a smooth process, and everything from the guitar riff to the lyrics to the vocals came naturally to me, and I was able to finish this track in just under 1 day, if I'm not wrong. So I hope you learned something new today, and you can use every single tricks and tips that I show you in these videos to your productions as well. One last thing that I want to tell you before signing off is that I am a music producer and I do this full time, and I love making these videos for you. So if you vibe with any of the music that is up on my channel, be it this video or any other previous videos that I've done before, and if you're looking for a producer to help you along your musical journey, I would love to be a part of your next project and bring it to life. To get in touch with me, you'll find a quick form in the description that you can fill, and I would love to get back to you. So with that, we come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you had a lot of fun and learned a lot of new things. I will see you very soon. Peace.